Hello, my name is Rob Daviau, Chief Restoration Officer for Restoration Games. I also have made some other games in the past 22 years for Hasbro and for various different companies, probably most well known for the Legacy games, specifically Pandemic Legacy.
Restoration Games was founded with a simple premise: every game deserves another turn. Rob Daviau and Justin Jacobson together would take games from across board game history and recreate them with modern design in mind, breathing new life into them for a whole new market. Their upcoming release, Return to Dark Tower, is a huge revamp of the original Dark Tower game from 1981, known for its looming electronic tower in the center of the playing field. I got to talk to Rob about the original game and his experience in redeveloping it.
Now, it's based on, because we're a restoration game, we do reboots of old games. It's inspired by and loosely based on the original game from Milton Bradley in 1981, which I played sparingly because they were hard to get, but as a kid, like I was 11 or 12 when it came out. And that game was unique because there was an electronic tower in the middle that kept track of like how many warriors you had in adjudicated battle and remembered how many of the 3 pieces of a key you had gotten, which was just transformative in 1982. But largely when it was other people's turns, you were just listening to what they were doing. And there was three levels, and there were 3 drums that basically did like a slideshow. They would rotate around and light up behind it. So we had to sort of recreate that in 2021. We started in 2017 of like, what can this do in the middle? And we're nearing the end. This is an actual first production shot of the tower. We're tweaking colors and tweaking various things. And I already had meetings say about software development and animation and all sorts of things, because the tower itself isn't going to drive everything. It talks via Bluetooth to an app. So you've got the game board, the tower, and the app. And the trick has been making an ecosystem where you're still playing a board game. So I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want an app. This may not be the game for you. So you don't want people just staring at a phone. You don't want people just staring at a tower and there's no game. You don't want to pay this amount of money to buy it or to make it and have the tower not do interesting things. So we've spent years trying to create this world where they all sort of work together. We had done a similar thing at Restoration Games with Stop Thief, which has a companion app. If you look back to a lot of games starting in the early as the 60s, you will find that they had electronics in them. You'd push buttons and they'd beep and they'd have little chips and they'd keep track of things. Dark Tower was the one that sort of took it to the next level, but there would Omega Virus in the 80s is another one that sort of did this. And people were very comfortable with the game that you put batteries in and played. It didn't actually cause any problem whatsoever. But to do that now, you need to put batteries in there. You need an integrated circuit. You need to program a custom circuit that will do maybe 2% of what your phone can do. So everyone already has a computer in their pocket that can do it. So the natural thing as a publisher is you say, or a designer, you say, well, I can just put this on the phone. It's the same thing that would happen in the middle of the table, but cheaper and better, and you're not replacing batteries and stuff. But there's a resistance to people as soon as you do that, even though you're just changing form. And some people do it well. Some, like designers, publishers, do it well. Some do it poorly. And there's going to be some people who just never like it, right? Some people don't like real-time games. Some people don't like trick-taking games. Some people don't like games with companion apps. But I feel like we're just out of the preliminary stages of how to do it and starting to move into the sort of journeyman intermediate stages of they did it well, they did it poorly. So if we wanted to do anything that duplicates electronics from an earlier time, almost every time we would do a companion app. I mean, there might be some that we wouldn't, because it just doesn't make sense to pour tens of thousands of dollars into developing unique integrated circuits to sell 8,000 games. Sometimes the tower will make sounds and sometimes the phone will make sounds. And that's one of the things we're going back and forth on is, when do we want you paying attention here versus here? Like if the phone makes a noise, you should be like, oh, I should look at that. Oh, an event has happened. I should deal with it. If the tower makes a noise, it's going to draw your attention there. You shouldn't have something on the phone at that point because people will get confused. So we're just getting the software and the tower and the music and sound effects in a place where we can start mixing over the next 6 weeks or so and get everything in the right place. I mean, neither of these are surround sound rich speakers, so we also have to customize for the fact that the there's not a lot of low-end bass noises and everything like that. A lot of the development happened in the past year, but early on it was Justin Jacobson, my partner in the company, Isaac and I sitting around trying to figure out what did the tower do, what did the phone do? And early on, we just kept saying, and then the app does this, and the app does this. We realized we're not making a board game, we're making a phone game. And then the very first thing people said was, oh, just slide the phone into the tower and then turn it around and you can like interact with the tower that way. And this becomes the world's most expensive phone holder, which very quickly people will just leave in the box and hand the phone around. And now you've paid for something you're not even using. The tower at one point was, when you access it, was going to open up, and then there was going to be another board where you were inside sort of playing and going up the tower, but that proved to be difficult. And then the tower was going to regrow, was going to start at rubble and sort of build up with like pistons to become, and it was a race before the tower rebuilt itself. But no matter how we did it, it just looked like a birthday cake coming to life, like a tiered birthday cake. And so we went back and we looked at the original game and it had rotating drums, and we said, let's just start from there. Now, what's different here, which I haven't even mentioned, is there's a spot in the top where you can drop a skull in at the end of your turn, and there's an IR sensor that the tower recognizes something dropped through, and it'll tell the phone, oh, someone just finished their turn. And the phone will sometimes be like, hey, you just finished your turn. By the way, before you go, all of the brigands are attacking right now. Or it might be like, oh, nothing happened. And so the skull will either come out through an opening if it's open, but at the beginning of the game, most of these doors are on there, so likely is to get stuck behind here. These are always open, it might come down the bottom. And so as you go, the skulls will come out. Skulls are bad, they go on buildings, they cause problems, they make monsters more powerful, they make events worse, and if you get too many skulls in a building, they sort of get destroyed, just overwhelmed with corruption. And then as the game goes on, these drums will rotate. So if there are skulls that are trapped behind, I don't know if I have all the doors, this door, and then the drum rotates to this opening, you'll get like 3 skulls will pour out that have been trapped there into a kingdom. And then you'll have to take doors off as it goes. These all have lights behind them. And the phone will tell you like the tower, a seal has broken, and there'll be a big light show and a sound show, and then this will start blinking, and then you pick it up, and maybe there's nothing behind there, or maybe there's skulls. So this thing slowly starts to open up and skulls come out. As you can see, there's a little symbol down here, and sometimes you reveal an evil glyph, which if it's facing you as a player, makes it harder for you to take some of the actions in the game. So that one makes it harder to do your hero special power. This one, when I said getting cool stuff, this makes it harder to get cool stuff. It's not harder, it just costs you spirit, which is like your hero points.
Before wrapping up our conversation, we got to talk briefly about Rob's creation of legacy board games and how to manage telling a story when there's so many different variables that each player is going to experience differently.
It was weird to figure out how to make a legacy game and sell it in. And Risk Legacy came out 10 years ago this fall. And I've told the story a lot of times, so I'm just going to tell an abbreviated story, because a lot of people have heard me say it a lot of times. But it was sort of an off-the-cuff idea for Clue, which I tried to sell into Hasbro's Clue: The Usual Suspects, like a 12-episode, game where Colonel Mustard could go to jail and he's not in the next game, and he gets a rap sheet and stuff like that. And they were like, this is weird. And then about a year later, I rebooted it for Risk as part of a larger line plan we do for Risk. And it sort of skated by. And then we realized we really wanted to do it. And I just gave the pitch of my life. And the then president was like, I'm not sure I fully understand what you're proposing here, but I think you might be onto something and your passion is clear, so go for it. And there's a whole long story of over the next year. It died like 6 times, and I saved it and brought it back and kind of used every trick in the book of working bureaucracy to get it to market. And more than half of me thought that people were going to think it was cool, but I was pretty close to half of me thought people would think I just lost my mind and there was nothing here, and it would kind of go down like in a blaze of glory of trying something way out there that no one was interested in. I was pleased that it was the former, but I never expected it to stick around and turn into my career and everything I'm known for. I did start, my goal in college was to be a television sketch comedy writer. And I was going to be on television and write that. And I was a role player and a comic book fan, and I've always liked episodic TV. and you kind of put those all together, and a legacy game sort of pops out at the other end. And it's weird because, as you mentioned before, I can't quite tell you a story because you want to have more involvement because you're playing the game, not watching the game. But if I just give a big branching path, I quickly go off the rails. And so the idea is to give you enough tropes and hooks and characters and events and a framework of a story that you write your own story without realizing it, like in Betray a Legacy. It's just, don't try to be too subtle. In some cases, I've tried to be subtle, and it might have been 4 months since someone played it, and they're busy thinking about their next turn, and the subtlety goes right over their head. So I'm a little bit more cartoony. It's been 10 years. I'm always trying. It takes me about a year and a half to 2 years to make, and then another year to come out. So the question is not, would someone buy one now, but would someone buy one 3 years from now? And I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to make one and everyone's like, we've moved on.
I want to thank Rob for taking the time out of his schedule to talk to me. This is the first episode in a series of videos we'll be making, talking with different board game designers about some of their upcoming or popular releases. So if you want to see more like this, please make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. If there are any designers you want to hear from, let us know in the comments below so we can try to reach out. Remember to head to villagegeekgames.com/store to find games for your next game night, or to pick up Return to Dark Tower when it releases. Until next time, I've been Sterling Matthew Oliver with The Village Geek, and thank you for watching.